Hello, 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 everybody. I am excited to have this conversation with a true expert in our space, the grand poobah of sales technology here, Craig Rosenberg. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm very pleased to be known as a grand poobah now. Nobody has ever called me that, so thank you. I've
Or the
gotten
big
called a
kahuna,
lot.
right?
I've been called a lot of names. Actually, on maybe it was Twitter last night. It was like a share of like something that I'd done, and the guy wrote SaaS creator OG. I was like, wow. First, I've always wanted to be called an OG,
Oh
and
yeah.
then yeah, so there you go. I was a
You're
creator,
in like uncle status right now. Would you say that
age-wise for sure.
Uncle Craig is appropriate?
Grandpa Craig is
Yeah.
very
I don't want to be that yet. No, definitely not. No.
no.
And I mean, you're the right man to talk to about this because
Mhm.
sales technology has just absolutely exploded over the last. You've seen it, in your career, how it's gone from using Salesforce.com and spreadsheets to what we have today. And just as a high level, what's your take on how the sales technology world is evolving and what you're seeing out there right now?
And when you use the term exploding, you mean in the positive explosion part, not not the last couple year and a half where it's been settling in, not exploding, but what I would say is settling.
Imploding?
No, it's not. Yeah, no, I look, here's what but I bring that up purposely because I mean, if you just take you don't have to use the hype cycle, but as a conceptually, this idea that, the excitement mounts, the thing that also comes with it is a lot of money floods in and a lot of applications and companies get built, and then everyone makes this big deal. Oh, it's exploding and da da da. I know that's not what you meant, but but it comes down, but then it settles in because the core applications survive. And so we did come out of sort of sales tech 1.0. I mean, unless you want to call CRM like a 1.0. But the one you're specifically talking about that sort of grew and just exploded, so to speak, was 1.0. And it was amazing. It's so funny that everyone wants to, there's these folks that just want to be negative, right? It's like, oh man, these, sales tech's getting kicked out and stuff. I'm like, no, wait a minute. Like now an SDR team has table stakes, a digital contact info vendor, a sales engagement platform. These are things you don't go to market without, right? And so it's like that we sort of settled in on core applications from 1.0, and the survivors are strong, and they're used quite. I mean, probably not as much as you and I would like, but they're big companies now. And now we're in 2.0, which is really interesting, right? Because you're probably getting as many as me and seeing there's a whole AI is, I don't know if I'd say it's easy to create a company, but there's a lot of companies coming up using AI to either disrupt, 1.0 companies, or to do things we never thought we could do before. And that, there's just a lot happening. Now we will have a similar effect where everything's going to happen. There'll be disappointment, the trough of disillusionment or whatever, and then we'll settle in, because it's like, the other thing I get is like people, oh, AI this, AI is going to, it's like, well, okay, hold on a sec. Yes, you can make fun of the people that are way too far ahead on the AI predictions, but you can't deny that AI is already changing the way we do work, right? And sorry about that, it's already changing the way we do work, and it will, clearly it will continue to do so. I don't even need to be in the prediction game, right? Like it's happening now, as you've seen. So we've got engagement. AI is like a real thing, as you know. I mean, I don't know anybody who's not sort of testing a chat GPT type of application to do messaging. That's like everyone's sort of in that mode today. And then, those applications that are sort of real vendors in the space are going to start to take on more workflow, right? Which is really the key, right? If everyone can use ChatGPT, well, then it's hard to build a business there. But if you start to sort of look at the workflow of things that are happening in SDR, sales, CS, or whatever, and you start to put AI into those workflows, then you start to see something amazing, right? And that's where, what we're seeing there. But I think people really focus on engagement AI. I just made that up. But operational AI is also really interesting, right? Because the sales tech 1.0 created a lot of opportunities for technology and things we can do. It created the RevOps idea. It created a lot of sales ops people or RevOps people, depending on what you want to call it. But actually, it's hard. It created a lot of spaghetti. There's a lot of apps stitched together. The data's everywhere. And so you start to see how, the new generation of apps is going to make it easier for us to both connect, to look at data, and then to actually not have to run a report and have, Gen AI or AI tell us what we should go look at. The other thing, though, that's all AI. The big thing, I think, is the cloud data warehouse. And I've been actually thinking about talking to you about this because I talk to Matt Amundsen about it all the time, right? And it's it's crazy, but it seems to be the solution for putting our data somewhere that we can actually pull it out and go use it. I think that's like a big thing on the sales tech side. So is that the reason I went from operational AI into the cloud data warehouses, because those things are interconnected in many ways. But like you start to see like the really forward moving RevOps, marketing ops organizations are starting to leverage that cloud data warehouse and putting the data there in order to pull it back out and to be able to look at it and make really good decisions, right? And I don't know, Justin Gray, he's at In Revenue Capital. He, before he was at Lead MD and then at Shift Paradigm. Towards the end of the time, I remember meeting with him. I'm like, man, I have to help some people do reporting, especially historical reporting, and I'd like to get a better handle on engagement. He's like, listen, man, I am just dumping everything in data warehouse now. And he had already started doing this like 3 years ago. Now we're seeing it more and more. So that's another sort of part of what we're going to see in sales tech, or we're seeing right now. And I think that's actually really exciting because everyone's got a cloud data warehouse. So now it's like, can we start to leverage it for our go-to-market data and be able to go do some really, frankly, stuff that we've always wanted to do that we had to stitch together or was like in a siloed application. Now, we'll be able to go do something with it. So I don't know. It's a long answer, man. Sorry. I meant
no.
Yeah.
So many things. And just reeling it back to the hype cycle. If people aren't familiar with the hype cycle, there was, we're talking 20 years ago, you went from literally like a CRM that was on a disk in your office to suddenly Salesforce came and it was distributed out, and they applied the cloud base to your CRM. And would you say when that happened, that was sort of the beginning of the initial 1.0 hype cycle, and then it came all the way up and down, and now we're like, due to all these macro factors, we're sort of at the bottom now, and we're starting to head back up with these new applications that you're talking about?
Well, I don't know. That was when I was asking you. I mean, like, we could do it either way. I think in terms of like, if we connected CRM with the sales tech hype cycle, I think that would not diminish, but it may not sort of represent the way the hype cycle sort of happened in both spaces. Like the CRM has had what you just described. I mean, I loved Act. You're probably too young. Like it was this contact database that you did put a disk in, and it was so great for salespeople. And I remember when Salesforce first came along, well, actually Siebel came, like there was big sort of monolithic CRM was sort of second, right? You had the Act and Goldmine and these folks that they still needed consultants often to help put them in, but they weren't as heavy. And then you had, Siebel and these big systems that came through, right? There was a bunch of them though. People don't even remember. It's like Quintus and like, oh God, I'm just like losing. This is pre Salesforce. I mean, even, I think Oracle, even before they bought Siebel, had their own. And it was, that was a hype cycle in and of itself. And then it was crazy because I'm not even sure how Gartner represents this. It was like a camel hump because there was a bunch of CRM buying, and then it didn't fall, although a bunch of apps fell off. It was that SaaS made it easier for everyone to go do. Salesforce just broke the lid on that thing, right? It's just like now people that were resistant to CRM, frankly, because spreadsheets were easier than loading a disk or using Goldmine, or they could just, people avoided them. Salesforce made it easier. Now, I do want to say though, when Salesforce first came out, I do remember I would be like, Act is better. Why can't they just, Act probably could have survived in the API era because they could have put their easy to use contact info database in front of Salesforce. But anyway, so CRM I think that went through its hype cycle. I think we would have like sales tech. So if we were like I think we were sort of stabilized with CRM, and then boom, the sales tech, MarTech 1.0 came out. And so I think it's separate. So I would start it with the rise of, all our favorite, apps that sort of came along. And then you would sort of have MarTech came first, right? Because Marketo and Eloquent, those guys just changed the game. And we just saw this. That's when Brinker started doing those crazy NASCAR slides, right? And then sales tech came along, a couple of years later, and really it blew the lid off on sales. So we're actually probably talking about 3 life cycles.
We're in the sort of the beginnings of the third.
Yeah.
So now you have sort of some legacy players who have a good installed base, and they've got customers, and they're doing pretty well. And then at the same time, there's a lot of upstarts who are still fulfilling point solutions that are coming up, and now AI is coming up behind that. You also have product-led growth where salespeople can just start using a product without even telling anybody else at the company.
I did that today.
Okay.
Myself. Yeah, keep going. I just loaded an app myself, and then credit card. It was amazing. I mean,
you don't even have to tell anybody. And so you have these forces converging, and then below that, it's what are the salespeople trying to accomplish, in their job every day, and what are the executives trying to accomplish when they are speaking to their boss and the board, and all these are converging. And what you're saying is right now, we're right at the beginning of a new cycle.
Yeah. Well, with everything you described is happening at the same time, right? Because the legacy players, now we're calling them legacy players, is amazing. They're not that old, right? I mean, geez, so like, the sales engagement players, the outreach sales loft people, they're still at war, and they're still going to battle it, and they're still, have massive install bases. But they're going to have to change, right? And they are. You can see it in the new features that are coming. I mean, AI is going to change them as well. But here's the thing that is really important on sales tech. So one is sales tech has, generally speaking, I know there's going to be some vendors that are mad at me for this, but look, generally speaking, it's a tech phenomenon. Like a lot of the buying came from tech companies, right? Yeah. And so when you think about like the future looking TAM, it's huge for these companies because they still haven't in a meaningful way cracked some of these other big industries with massive sales teams. We always talked about it, but Not quite, right? Like we're not, well, not even close. Actually, that's good news, right, for sales tech. But here's the better news is that AI is a mandate coming down from CIOs and from CEOs. There are, from what I can tell without having the data, there's carve out for go figure out what to do with AI. And I'm talking to a lot of sales tech and MarTech vendors who are talking to people, and it's the conversation is starting with, I got to figure out this AI thing. That's actually going to open up a bigger market, because now the company that was like, well, I don't really have SDR, so I don't need to send 6,000 emails, and we have all these privacy issues, or, you know what I mean? Or like a forecasting like Clary that's done so well, that it's, it's very difficult to do like a really big deal right now. For them, it changes, right? Because, now it's like, well, let's go look at AI, and there's infrastructure at these companies to deal with AI. There's budget to go test and figure it out. That will open up for the legacy folks, like the folks I just mentioned, and it'll open up as we start to see all these young vendors come up. They'll have opportunities there. But what we're seeing, so anyway, that is exciting for the industry, right? Because we've generally gone to the growth that we are now via tech. And I don't think that changes, by the way. I think, to make it in sales tech, you win in the mid-market technology market first. It's like, that's, if you look at the history of MarTech and sales tech, that's where everyone's won first, even Salesforce. And then you grow from there. And by the way, mid-market like tech is not the same as mid-market, pharma or anything like that. I mean, we're talking, like a Series C company would be like mid-market in tech, and that's where, a lot of these stuff are born out, and then you've got to go expand. And that has been relatively vexing for the industry as a whole. But that's going to change because AI has opened up the, hey, go figure out this AI thing. All right. So that's big for the industry. The second part is what you talked about, is like, we got a whole bunch of vendors coming in. And I'm not sure that that's still sorting itself out. There's a lot of really good ideas, like where categories get created, I think is really interesting. The one, we're investors in Reggie, right? I think that, there's one where you're starting to see that thing really gel, which is like beyond messaging, and to start to pick up various areas of the workflow, along the way. That is like, okay, that's meaningful, right? Because you said something about features, right? And I think there's features and there's things that are pretty good ideas that are sort of just pretty good idea with AI, but not a use case, right? That market needs use cases, not cool technology, use cases. So that's, I mentioned that as one that makes total sense. I mean, here's one that I think makes total sense, but isn't there yet. The real-time recommendations on a sales call, as we do more and more, that makes sense. That's a use case that totally makes sense. I don't know that it's there yet. I haven't seen a ton of rep satisfaction or sales teams, but that will continue to get better and better. But like that, I'm just bringing that up as an example of a use case that we could talk about. So that's what the AI market needs, is these companies that keep getting smarter and smarter and building these things into use cases, right? Yeah. And that's still emerging.
Definitely. Well, something interesting too is you mentioned the operational aspect and applying AI to that. So you've got these massive data lakes, all this information, but the connection to actually making it usable and making it something that people can use in their job, it's not quite there yet when it comes. So you see that as an application for AI.
Oh yeah. First of all, thank you for using the phrase data lake. Okay. Topo, I used to say data lake all the time, and then finally Eric Whitlake's like, Craig, do you know what a data lake is? And I'm like, well, not really, but it sounds really cool, honestly. And it does.
You visualize
now I have a better idea. But like at the time, I just I would just pick up stuff, because you know how it is. You live a life that I used to live, which is like you're just running around the country, you're just picking up, these bits and pieces of information, and it was like dumping in a data lake. But yeah, dumping it in the data warehouse or whatever it is, that is an operational breakthrough in and of itself. And there's already investment there. So you don't have, you have to buy applications that will allow you to, feed the stuff in, and stuff that will allow you to sort of have relevant views of what comes out of it or things that you can go do with that data. But that is an operational breakthrough. The ones I'm really interested in is like, nobody's calling it this yet, but I'll just throw it out there, which is like, everyone talks about the sales assistant, but actually you're going to have a RevOps analyst, like an AI robot RevOps analyst, right? Because RevOps is hard, man. Like, these people are like some of the smartest people I know in the go-to-market organization. I mean, everyone's, I don't mean other people are still below, but these are folks that, are really at the intersection of process, operations, technology, and strategy. I mean, the RevOps opportunity is huge in go-to-market, but they spend a lot of time doing reports at 11:30, being reactive, putting out fires relentlessly, instead of being strategic. And part of that is because we built up stacks, and now that's why a lot of vendors you talk to are like, well, people aren't buying. Well, RevOps, obviously there's the macroeconomic condition, but also RevOps is like, whoa, man, like I'm trying to, they try to create some semblance of peace in their lives, and it's like, and then we add one more thing and it just changes everything. And so AI can help, right? And this concept is like a RevOps analyst that, that's looking at what's happening in the revenue life cycle for you, or it's proactively looking at the forecast versus, running a report. You would, that the RevOps analyst assistant, would come, be able to proactively tell you kind of what it's seeing. The other stuff is like, we're starting to see more coming in with the data loading, AI routing, AI, a lot with the data in that front end. And that's a pain for RevOps. Data management, we just talked about. But then, like the sort of insights and the ability to use them, that's like still running a report, having a meeting, people complaining about the data in the meeting or wanting another report. That's sort of their lives. And, what if we didn't have to wait for a report, and that, AIs can learn and and come back to us with information that to me will allow RevOps to be more strategic, not, sort of IT, right? And I think that's going to be huge for go-to-market organizations. It's so competitive out there across any industry, selling anything today. And as much as we can, the like RevOps is like the strategist on how we look at data end to end and how workflow looks. But more importantly, right, how can we take learnings from those two things and create really good decisions? We need help on that, because otherwise, I remember, I don't remember, but it was a big company. It was like, they didn't call it RevOps, but they had 55 business analysts looking at go-to-market data. It's like, I mean, it's the best you can do right now, especially if you want to be data-driven, right? And 55 is probably more than they had, but I know the number 55 because when they were looking at apps, they were bringing in 50. So maybe they were doing it, but still, it's a lot of people that are just doing things that require a lot of collecting, verifying, etc., and then trying to do insights and then sent back. I mean, you and I haven't had to do the end user side in a while, but we can, our customers and our friends. It's the most never-ending cycle is the report to get another report, to ask for another report, to go back to the original report. I just, it's amazing. At Opstars, we were talking about this, and I forget who it was, and one of the other panelists is a RevOps person, and he's like, that was me last night at 11:30 at Dreamforce, going and trying to investigate something. And it's like,
Yeah.
so that's where I'm. So that's not the only part. Like there's the AI component of like all the things that we can do with the cloud data warehouse is going to be like their insights will be driven out of that. But like, I think about just, how we can supplement all the things we're doing as a human, which is what AI does. You can start to see the operational AI ideas emerge, and nobody should have a lack of imagination there. There's a lot that we can go sort of automate, and that should be exciting for everyone.
That's super exciting. And you heard it here first, the RevOps robot. I mean, when you think about it, they've got they call it like the Franken stack, that they're just a bunch of apps all tied together with data everywhere. And you could see why that guy had to stay up until midnight before your talk, because there's just that whole mess on one side. And then on the other side, it's the VP of sales and the CRO want their reports and they want insights from the person. So at this point, they're not sleeping at all, and then you throw more bodies at it. It just makes it more confusing. So perfect application, it seems. And Craig, that's a question on a lot of the bigger, more legacy players in sales tech are consolidating. They're trying to be able to check every box on the checkbox. So they come at it from they have the data. Now they've got sequences. Now they've got calendar. Now they got this. Or they started with sequences. Now they've got data, and they're trying to pull it together. So do you see, at some point there's going to be sort of, you need a CRM and one, sales acceleration platform, and that's it, done. Your stack is done.
Yeah, everyone. So one is, to quote Scott Albro,
Okay.
I think most end users are saying consolidation, but they don't mean everything in one app. They mean elimination. I mean, part of this process that you just described are apps that brought no value to the organization that we bought, and they should just go. By the way, because listen, I mean, everyone talks about consolidation into one. I'm like, okay, great. How come there isn't, like right now, things are tough. We got a whole bunch of startups that should be consolidated that are allegedly, let me put it this way, if they were features, they would have been bought. If they were, and they're not. So one is, so why is that? Why aren't we seeing that, that sort of consolidation argument? Is because right now people are actually not consolidating in the sense that the vendors think about it. It's how the end users think about it, which is elimination. So they're peeling it back, right? Okay. But I haven't seen in my, so everyone, so but like if that was the case, right, of what you just described, a perfect example would be Salesforce.
Yeah.
But let's just take Pardot. Like Marketo and Eloqua and HubSpot are probably, well, look, they're probably, I don't have the data, but they're probably the leaders in marketing automation. And everyone said, well, if they're going to get bought by the CRM and then be part of the CRM, they were saying that a long time ago. And they say, oh, no, marketing automation is the platform, right? That's the platform. Okay, then what else do we have in there? Like, what have we bought to make it this comprehensive single system? You know what I mean, David? Like, I get it. Conceptually, it makes sense. I don't believe it. Everyone always thinks there's going to be this one platform. The issue is, one is we assume that a lot of the tech that was created is a feature or a credible one. I think some of them just aren't the size of bit. Like, for example, direct mail. Yeah, there should be direct mail companies. Are they billion-dollar companies? Hasn't proven to be that yet. Is Salesforce or Outreach and Sales Off going to buy a direct mail application? I don't think so. You see, so like there's, I think I think, look, the market is sorting itself out on the things they want and don't want right now. That's consolidation. That is that they're consolidating, but they're not necessarily begging us to like and they're not begging us to put it in one app. And there definitely has not been. If the feature is not mission critical, then yeah, people will go for a substandard feature in the app that they already have, right? But generally, we've seen the market gravitate towards the better application and at the expense of having it all in one system. And by the way, if the cloud data warehouse idea continues to take off and it doesn't matter, we don't want a massive Brinker slide in our tech stack, but we can start to grab the data from these things, which we haven't been able to do before. And with AI, remember, so I'll leave you with this. So I saw Bobby Napoltonia. I don't know if you know him. I just brought him up twice on different shows. But he's a buddy and he's really smart. He's early stage Salesforce and now he's doing consulting and he's just the king of the buzzword phrase. And I saw him and I said, "What's up? What's your big take on Dreamforce?" He said, "Well, we invented the no software, but now it's the appless generation." And people don't want to be in apps. So all these things that are happening that we're about, with AI, we're gonna be able to, these things will be easier to operate and or consolidate and or work right in the app, in the UX of our choice. That changes things too, right? It makes it less of an issue to have everything in one platform. But if you think about it, man, I mean, an example in your favor of what you just brought up is conversation intelligence. I mean, everyone's sort of adding that now. So is that now everything's going to be in one app? Well, if Gong and Chorus continue to build the key to conversation intelligence is what you do with the data. And so, that is the second phase of what happens to that market. Does it get eaten as a feature in everyone else? Or can it stand alone? It can only stand alone if we do something with the data, because clearly now the commoditization of the actual recording of the call, we're using one today, is happening. Now we got to figure out what we go do with the data. That could come from a platform, like you said, but it could also come from a whole new set of vendors, So anyway, all right. I don't know. I got off track on that last one, but I think I've gone over. We did 3 questions. I hope that works.
I think we need to do round 2. There's so many nuggets that have come out of this, Craig. I think definitely reeling this back. We'll have the recording as well, and some of the things you said are really making me think about what's next here in sales technology. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom, and we'll see you over at scalevp.com.